Hey, what's going on, guys? Nick here with Seku Technologies, and I'd like to welcome you to your first JavaScript and jQuery tutorial. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, Nick, if I have learned Java, can I learn JavaScript? Well, the answer is yes, but I want you to clear your mind if you believe that they're both related in some way, because they are absolutely different. Java and JavaScript have no sort of relation whatsoever. As a matter of fact, JavaScript was actually derived from the C programming language, whereas Java is a little bit more widely used, but it's used for desktop programming typically, and that's not going to be something that we often see used in the JavaScript spectrum. So to begin, JavaScript, along with HTML and CSS, is one of the three essential technologies of World Wide Web content production. The cool part about JavaScript is that the majority of websites employ it, and it's also supported by almost every single web browser out there. JavaScript is used in web browsers to make websites way more interactive, interesting, and also more user-friendly. Specifically, it's used to access and modify the content within websites. So when I say content, I want you to think of text, I want you to think of pictures, I want you to think of anything that you can possibly put within hypertext markup language, your HTML. JavaScript has the ability to manipulate it in some sort of way. The next question that you might be asking, well, Nick, do I need to understand programming in order to learn JavaScript? No, however, it is going to be better if you have an understanding of HTML, hypertext markup language, because remember, HTML is what allows us to have our content. It is the content within our websites. If we don't have HTML, then we have nothing to utilize JavaScript for. We have nothing to manipulate, right? So it's going to be best if you have a general understanding of HTML. If you don't, yet and still, JavaScript is still a great programming language to understand and also learn, and it's great for starters as well. However, if you do have experience, you're going to see that JavaScript utilizes many traditional programming rules, aka object orientation. So specifically for this tutorial, you're going to need three things. You're going to need a text editor, which is Sublime Text. That's the one that we're going to be using today. If you don't have it downloaded, feel free to pause the video, go on ahead and click on the link or type in the link into your web browser and get it downloaded. Thing number two that you're going to need, which probably everybody has at this point in time, is a web browser. You can either utilize Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, or Mozilla Firefox, and each one of these should work perfect for today. And also, I'm going to need everyone to think like a computer. I need everyone to begin thinking schematically, programmatically. I want you to think as if your brain is useful for doing nothing more but creating algorithms. Everything that we do today is going to be based off of some sort of recipe. You can relate it to baking cookies. First, you have to get your cookie sheet. You have to get your cookie dough, you have to mix it together, you have to turn on the oven. For the entire sake of this tutorial, this is how we're going to be learning how to program and also write our JavaScript. So, the table of contents. The first thing that we're going to learn about is the ABCs of programming. I'm a firm believer in conceptually being able to understand things prior to actually doing them. Now, I am a firm believer also in learning by doing, which we're going to do. However, I want to make sure you have the conceptual basis first. Chapter 2, we're going to learn about the basics of JavaScript and also JavaScript instructions. This is going to be where we begin to write some code, and if you need to know which video it happens in, specifically it's video number 3. Chapter 3, we're going to do functions, methods, and also objects. We're going to learn about those a little bit more in depth. Then we're going to hit on decisions and loops, document object models or DOMs, and then events. And then after that, that's where we're going to start learning about jQuery. So it's going to be a pretty long tutorial, but it's going to be very, very useful. So make sure you all stick around with us. All right. So as a JavaScript user, we need to specifically know what JavaScript is used for. Well, some of the most popular things that we use JavaScript for are going to be the slideshows that you see within websites. So if we use sekutech.com as an example, you can see that I have this slider on my page. Well, the JavaScript is specifically accessing the pictures within this specific slideshow, or the pictures within the HTML on my website, and it's altering them in some way. I'm not going to tell you how it's altering them, but it's actually utilizing those pictures to create this slideshow that you see. And that's one of the cool things about JavaScript, is that we can have it manipulate and change any of the content as long as it's accessible within our HTML. We can also use it to construct web forms as well. So if we go back to sekutech.com and we scroll down towards the bottom, you're going to see that I have this web form. Well, after I enter in all of my information, my website needs to know what to do after I click on the send button. Where is it going to send the information? Is it going to send it to a database? Is it going to take it somewhere else? Specifically, what is it going to do? And all of that is described within our JavaScript. And we're also going to learn about that in a couple of later videos. So we're hitting on everything for the most part. We actually use it to reload parts of web pages or even full web pages without the use of clicking a button. And also we can use it to filter specific forms of data. So once again, top 4 JavaScript uses: modify, access, programming rules, and reacting to events. If none of these terms make sense to you, make sure you stick around. However, we've hit on the first one already: modifying content within our web pages. Remember, you can use JavaScript to add elements, add attributes, update them, add text to pages, or also remove all of these particular elements from our HTML. Anything that we type in our HTML, our JavaScript is going to have access to it, which leads to the second use. We're able to select any element, we're able to select any attribute, and we're also able to select text within our HTML page. For example, if we want to select the text inside of the H1 element on a particular page. I hope everyone understands what H1 is. Remember, it's going to be good if everybody has an HTML backing for this tutorial, but if you don't, perhaps it's going to be good if you have a hypertext markup language book next to you so you can follow along with some of the later terms. Another use of JavaScript is for program rules. You can specify a set of steps for the browser to follow. Remember, aka a recipe, an algorithm, a schematic, which allows it to access or change the content of that particular page. And finally, reacting to events. We want it to do so. We want the content to do something when a particular button is pushed or some other type of event happens within our web page. And that's going to be an important key as time progresses. So remember, JavaScript modifies content, it accesses content, it programs rules, and also it reacts to events. The big 4, remember that. Now, what about scripts? JavaScript has this word script inside of it, but what does script actually mean? Well, a script is nothing more than that series of instructions that your computer specifically uses to achieve a particular goal. Your web browser may use different parts of the script depending on how the user interacts with the particular web page. So JavaScript is nothing more than a script. It is a scripting language. It is a recipe. It is a schematic. We use it to follow a series of steps to achieve a certain goal within our web browser specifically. Okay? JavaScript runs within web browsers. It is a language that is compiled or interpreted within Google Chrome. Everything runs within the web browser. Nothing happens at the actual computer level, if that makes sense. Okay. So once again, some examples of scripts are recipes, we have handbooks, and we also have user manuals, all forms of schematics that we can use to follow a series of steps to achieve goals. Continuing on with scripts, the first thing that we're always going to want to do whenever we're writing JavaScript, 3 essential steps. We have to define a goal. There's no point in programming at all. I don't care what programming language you are using. There's no point in programming at all if you do not have a goal in mind. This is going to be another one of the more important pieces of programming. If you don't have a goal, you're going to be coding for no reason at all. So whenever we define our goal, we're going to need to think about, well, what is it that we are attempting to accomplish? Taking a look at this flowchart on the right side of the page, what are some tasks of a hotel cleaner, or if you're attempting to clean your room? Well, first, they're going to have to check each room. They're going to see whether or not the room needs tidying. If it does need tidying, then they're going to tidy the room. If it doesn't need tidying, then they're going to ask themselves, well, does the minibar need to be restocked? If it does, then you're going to restock it. If not, then you're going to go to the next room and complete the same exact function. Yes, even though this might be the series of steps that a hotel cleaner will go through when deciding whether or not to clean a room, your computer does the same exact thing when going through your programming code. Every single thing that we do, we are going to have to tell the computer to do it within our programming code. And this is going to be essential. Excuse me. So next, we're going to have to design the script. Then we're going to split the goal out into a series of steps. That's going to be the recipe part of it. We can either do this within a flowchart, a graph, or some other sort of schematic. And last but not least, that's where we're going to actually code out the series of steps that we just did. Uh-oh, wrong page. And yes, you do have homework if you just took a look at that. So from here, actually taking our flowchart and turning that into code. Every step within our flowchart needs to be written in a language that the computer can understand and follow. So our flowchart is nothing more than what we understand. It's nothing more than the steps that we ourselves are able to interpret. Okay? After we've written down the flowchart in the series of steps as a user would go through it, we have to take that schematic, and then we have to translate it to something in which the computer can understand. And that's when JavaScript comes into play. It takes our thoughts, our ideas, and then it changes them into thoughts and ideas that our computer can understand, the instructions. The computer needs to be told every single detail of what is expected to do, or of what they are expected to do, and they will do it. Your code, once again, is nothing more than the instructions. So to end this first class on the intro to JavaScript, y'all have been great. We do have a little bit of homework, and one thing that I want you to do is write out a script for doing something around the house. It can either be cleaning, it can be some type of chore, it can be playing a video game. Doesn't matter what it is. I want you to write out a script. I want you to have a goal in mind. Then I want you to write out the actual steps to get to that goal with all of the different possibilities that comes along with it. And then after that, we're going to figure out how to code it, and we're going to put things into a little bit more perspective. So please do your homework so I can give everybody 100 and we can move on to the next class. See you guys in a bit. Bye.